I let my husband move in with his mistress and secret child, but my son exposed everything. My name's Isabel Thompson. I'm 39, and I live in this quiet little town just outside of Asheville, North Carolina. From the outside, my life probably looked like some Hallmark postcard. Cute wooden house tucked into the pines, a polite teenage son, and a husband with a respectable job in international logistics. But that picture-perfect life, it was held together by nothing but my patience, and the lie I kept whispering to myself for 15 damn years: things will get better. My husband, Dustin, 42, works for some big shot global shipping company. His job? It's basically just an excuse to disappear. He started vanishing on extended business trips when Will, our son, turned 5. First it was a couple of weeks here and there, then a month, and now it's like the man only shows up on holidays and the anniversary of his mum's funeral. I used to get it. I mean, life's expensive, bills pile up, right? But what I didn't see coming was how his absence became the norm. And the silence? That crept in too. Quiet turned into cold. I gave up my interior design career when Will was born. That was our deal. I'd be the full-time parent, the steady one. And I was. Every dinner, every school meeting, every 2 a.m., fever, me. In the early years, Dustin used to tell me, "You're incredible," or "I hit the jackpot with you." But those words vanished, replaced with texts like busy or can't talk now. 2 years ago, I cracked. Not for money, but for air. I took a part-time gig teaching floral design at the community center 10 minutes away. A few classes a week, nothing fancy, but it reminded me that I existed outside this cage of motherhood and wifehood. That's when I started writing again. At first, it was just little rants in a journal, anonymous blog posts no one read. But then I created this fictional woman, a quiet powerhouse wrapped in politeness, exposing lies people didn't want to see. Under the pen name L.C. Monroe, I dropped my first novel on a niche writing site, and boom, 100,000 followers. I didn't tell anyone, not even Dustin. That story? That was mine. Will's 16 now. He doesn't talk much about his dad, but I know he sees the cracks. One time, I found him staring at our wedding photo for way too long. I asked what he was thinking, and all he said was, "It's weird. Dad's in every photo but never really here." I didn't respond. What was I supposed to say? Every time Dustin came back, it felt like watching a bad community theatre performance. He'd walk in with some half-thought gift, toss out a polite, "Everything okay?" Like we were co-workers, not spouses. Then he'd eat a couple meals, smile like he still belonged, and vanish again. "I'll be back soon," he'd say. And me? I'd nod like some wind-up doll, pretending it meant something. Our marriage wasn't a wildfire, but it wasn't a war zone either. It was stagnant, like a glass of water left out for days. Clear, sure, but flavorless. Still, I kept telling myself, this is what people do, right? They get tired, but they come back. If there's love, they come back. I believed that, right up until one April afternoon. That's when he video called me. First time I'd seen his face in nearly 2 weeks. I smiled, idiot that I was, but he didn't return it. Instead, with a voice so eerily calm it felt like ice down my spine, he said, "Isabel, we should get divorced." For a second, I froze. It didn't even feel real. Like maybe I'd written that line in some draft and forgotten about it. But no, this wasn't fiction. This was my life. He ended the call without waiting for a response, and I just sat there, staring at the black screen, those words echoing like a metal bat hitting an empty barrel. We should get divorced. No shouting, No tears, just this expanding void in my chest. 3 days later, a thick envelope arrived by express mail. Return address? R. Thompson, Chicago office. Inside, crisp divorce papers, financial breakdowns marked up in yellow, and a smug little handwritten note. Thanks for everything. I think we both deserve a fresh start. Back before fall, please be ready to move. Move. He really wrote that. No apology, no reason, just move. I called him back, hand shaking. He picked up after 6 damn rings. His tone was flat, like he'd just finished brushing his teeth. I don't want this to get messy, Isabel. Oh, you think this is polite? I snapped, sending me divorce papers like a passive-aggressive memo and telling me to get out of my house? We've been apart for too long, he replied, like that excused it. You're in North Carolina. I'm in Chicago. That's not a real marriage anymore. But that was your choice, Dustin. I never agreed to live like ghosts. I stayed for Will, for your parents, for this home. He paused, just for a breath, then said, in that cold, corporate voice, just review the papers. I'll support Will until he turns 18. I'll cover your moving expenses if needed. I laughed, not the kind of laugh that comes from your gut. This one was hollow, bitter. 18? Will's in 10th grade. Dustin, that's 3 more years. You think it ends there? I'm not trying to fight you on custody, he said. He should stay with you. I'll send a check every month. That's the best I can do. I gripped the phone like it might break in my hand. This house, my home, is under Grant's name. When he passed, it was legally transferred to me. You don't have any right to it. It's Thompson family property, he snapped. That line sliced right through me, like I'd been squatting here all these years, like every brick I painted, every rosebush I trimmed, meant nothing. I was just a placeholder. That night, when Will got home, I didn't say a word. I grilled some burgers, asked how his study group went, kept the illusion steady, but in my head, plans were forming, fast. 3 days later, I called him. I'm not signing. Isabel, you're making this harder than it needs to be. Number, I'm doing what a mother should. If you want my signature, we renegotiate. I want a written commitment. Support Will through college, not just until he turns 18. You can't demand that. I'm not legally obligated. Maybe not, but morally? You don't get to ditch your son halfway through. He didn't respond, just hung up. I knew Dustin. He hated chaos. His whole identity was built on being the calm, reliable guy. He wanted a quick, clean exit. But I wasn't that quiet little housewife anymore. I wasn't waiting on the porch like some loyal retriever. I looked back through the papers he sent. Plenty of lines about relocation assistance, but nothing about the 15 years I gave him. Nothing about the career I walked away from, the nights I stayed up with sick parents, the invisible labor that kept everything running. A few days later, I got a text from him. If you keep dragging this out, I won't pay a cent after the divorce. Think carefully. I replied with one sentence. Then I'll see you in court. I shut off my phone, opened my laptop, and started drafting a formal response. Dustin thought this was almost over. He had no idea. The more he pushed, the quieter I got. He kept hounding me to sign everything before August, said it was to wrap things up, before heading back to the Chicago office. Seemed normal enough, but something didn't sit right. Dustin hated taking responsibility, so why the sudden rush? One night, after Will had gone to bed early, I sat down and started digging through Dustin's old emails. One detail stopped me cold. For the past 6 months, his work messages hadn't come from Chicago. They came from Peoria, some nowhere town 3 hours outside the city. quiet, low profile, easy to disappear into. I hired someone, not some trenchcoat type, just a retired PI named Rose, used to do asset tracing in divorce cases. I gave her the address he'd mentioned, his travel schedule, a few other details. She said, "Give me 3 days." On the 4th, she sent a photo. There was Dustin, standing in front of a little suburban house with a sloped roof, holding groceries like it was just another Tuesday. Beside him, a younger woman, early 30s, blonde hair, big smile, and a little boy, maybe 6, gripping her hand, popsicle dripping down his arm, looking at Dustin like he hung the moon. Behind them, a grey pickup, the same one Dustin claimed he sold last year. My stomach dropped, not because he cheated. I think deep down I already knew, but because he was living a whole other life. Still sending birthday cards to Will, still calling me his wife, while playing house with someone else. Rose confirmed it. The woman's name was Tracy Malone, dental assistant. The boy? Mike Malone. No father listed on the birth certificate. Dustin had even rented a fake apartment nearby as his official residence in case his company checked up. 2 lives. One to live in, one to lie with. I sat in the dark that night, staring at the report. And the rage? It didn't burn. It settled, cold, quiet, like something was about to shift. At some point, the betrayal stopped being the worst part. What really kept me awake? The audacity. He had a whole new family, a kid, a girlfriend, a cozy little life in Peoria, and now he was trying to shove me and Will out, just in time for his other child to move in and start the school year fresh. He didn't just want out of the marriage, he wanted to erase me. So I did the one thing I've always been good at. I wrote. I typed up an email, attached 2 very incriminating photos, and kept the message short. If you want my signature, you'll be covering Will's entire college tuition, all legal fees, and every dime it takes to move. Otherwise, I'm more than happy to let the court see all of this. 15 minutes later, buzz. Isabel, I can explain. No more half-truths, I texted back. Say it. Own it. You're overreacting. Tracy is just. Don't lie again. I cut in. That boy is your son, isn't he? Silence. Just breathing on the other end. Heavy. Guilty. I didn't let up. You're allowed to rebuild your life, but you don't get to bulldoze someone else's to make room for it. Will is not going to be left homeless, and I'm not getting tossed aside like yesterday's laundry. He ended the call without a word. 3 hours later, I got an email. We need to talk. I'll come by this weekend. And I thought, there it is. Now the real show begins. That Sunday, it was hot. He showed up in a crisp dress shirt, no luggage, no smile, face like stone. I didn't invite him in, but he stepped through the door anyway, like he still owned every inch. What do you want to sign the papers? He asked, standing in the living room like this was some quick errand. You're in a rush because the kid's got to start school soon, right? I shot back, eyes locked on his. His face twitched. He didn't deny it, didn't even try. Instead, he turned toward the wedding photo from 2004 on the shelf. I don't want to make this harder than it needs to be, he said. Just sign. I'll leave you, and will enough to live comfortably. I scoffed. I don't need your handouts, Dustin. I need the truth in its rightful place. I pulled out a stack of documents and placed them on the coffee table, like I was setting a trap. He stared like it was ticking. What's this? Legal paperwork, updated deed to the house, a preliminary copy of Grant's will, and an adoption certificate. He blinked. Adoption? I nodded calmly. Last year, After your dad's second stroke, I was the one who drove him to every therapy appointment. You didn't even answer his calls. His jaw clenched, but he stayed silent. During that time, he rewrote everything. Said he didn't trust you to play fair after he was gone. He had me legally adopted, so I'd be protected. The house? It's mine now. A living gift, in writing, per his estate plan. I slid the notarized copy across the table. Dustin stared at it, eyes scanning the lines, the vein on his temple starting to pulse. He looked like he'd just watched the ground vanish beneath him. This is forged. Feel free to test it in court, I said, voice calm. His lawyer already signed off on everything. I've got the notarized original, and if the court needs confirmation, Grant is still sharp as hell and ready to testify. Dustin slumped onto the couch, like someone had yanked the floor out from under him, but I wasn't done. As for the inheritance, I added, after you filed for divorce, your father filed a formal petition to have your rights revoked. He jerked his head up, face pale. He can't do that. He can, and he already did. Under North Carolina law, if approved, everything goes directly to Will, his biological grandson, through intestate succession. Dustin sat there, stunned. I could almost hear the sound of his little empire collapsing. I made sure to say the next words slowly, clearly, like driving nails into the fantasy he'd built, because his only son had a secret child, lived a double life, and tossed his family like yesterday's garbage. He bowed his head, hands clenched, chest rising in uneven bursts. After a long silence, he looked up. So what now? You kicking me out? Number, I'm letting you walk out, once you understand there's nothing left under your feet. I stood up and walked to the door. This house belongs to me, and Will. We're not going anywhere. You better find your other kid a new place to live, before the school year starts. He got up slowly, still mute. As his hand touched the doorknob, I added one last thing. Oh, and Dustin, if you think about skipping out on child support, don't. I'll take all of this to family court, and if I have to, I'll go public, every detail, including the 2 separate residences you used on business trips. He froze, turned back to me, wide-eyed. You wouldn't dare. I tilted my head, calm and deadly. Try me. He left, and that was the moment I knew everything had shifted. 3 weeks later, I opened an email from Harper Literary, one of the biggest publishing houses on the East Coast. The subject line was simple: congratulations. We are officially acquiring the adaptation rights to Ash Tree Letters for an animated series. My hands shook. My debut novel, written under the name C.L. Monroe, was going global. A Japanese-American anime series, set to premiere next spring. Nobody knew I was Monroe. For 3 years I'd been quietly uploading chapters, editing alone at night, reading every comment like it was oxygen. I never told Dustin. He would have called it a hobby, a distraction. That distraction just landed a 6-figure licensing deal. More than the money, it gave me something he never could, proof that I was never the dependent one. When it came time to sign the contract, I brought Will with me. He wore a crisp white shirt, hair combed neat, pride beaming from his eyes. Afterward, we grabbed dinner at a little diner near the central station. Nothing fancy, just a celebration between 2 people who'd survived hell and come out stronger. As the main course hit the table, Will looked up from his plate and stared at me. Not like a kid asking for ketchup. This was serious. Are you going to tell Dad? He asked quietly. I set down my glass and took a breath. Not yet, I said. But I think it's time. Turns out, I didn't need to wait long. A week later, my phone lit up. Dustin. First call in over a month. His voice wasn't sharp this time, just low, like he didn't know how to start. Isabel, I talked to Dad. Will told him everything. I didn't expect it to go this far. You should have called him sooner. Not for the house, but because you're his son. Then silence. And then... I know I screwed up, but I also know now. You're not just some woman who hides in the kitchen like I used to think. There's more to you. I see it in Will's eyes. He's proud of you. I let out a soft laugh, not mocking, just tired. I've always been me. You just never bothered to look hard enough. Then I paused and said it. I'm C.L. Monroe. Dead silence. Then, what? The author of Ash Tree Letters, the one you were asking Will about the other day. You? Number. That's not possible. That writer, she's dramatic, makes women sound like warriors or something. Why not me, Dustin? I asked, calm but pointed. Because in your head, I was just your wife, the one who cooked, cleaned, stayed out of your way. That's all I was to you. I let it hang there, then continued, voice steady. I've spent the last 2 years studying family law, property law, civil litigation, not to go after anyone, but to learn how to protect what's mine, so when betrayal came, I'd be ready. His voice actually shook this time. You studied for this? I studied, I said, so I wouldn't be a victim. The divorce is done. The financials are locked. The assets are documented. And the rights to the adaptation, that's mine, exclusively. I didn't give him time to respond. If you're calling to get a piece of it, don't. If you're calling to say sorry, I hear you. But if you're calling to come back, it's too late. He stayed silent, so I filled the silence for him. Some things don't break from one hit, I said softly. They fall apart because someone stopped showing up. That night, while Will flipped through the draft of my next book, he looked at me with this quiet grin and said, You know what Dad told me? He said you're dangerous because you stay silent and still leave people with no way out. I met his eyes, calm and unbothered. If that's what your father believes, there's no need to correct him. That was the moment I stopped being afraid of being left behind. I had learned how to stay with myself. Through knowledge, through power, and through every word I'd ever written with my own hands. 2 months later, I got a strange email. It came from an address ending in gtrlogistics.com.com. Dustin's company, the one he'd worked at for over a decade. The email came from Marsha Fuller, Regional HR Director. Cold and clipped. We confirm that Mr. Dustin Thompson has been officially transferred to the Rapid City, South Dakota branch, with a downgraded role to Tier 3. If there are any active legal matters between you and Mr. Thompson, please forward documentation to our legal department. I wasn't shocked, just surprised it happened that fast. I still had a few quiet contacts, people who'd worked with Dustin, including one woman who stayed in touch because she happened to love C.L. Monroe's writing. Through her, I found out what really happened. After Dustin pushed hard for me to sign the divorce papers and got nowhere, Tracy, yes, the mistress, called his office herself. She needed help filing paperwork for residency sponsorship for her and Mike. That call was recorded. Within days, an internal report was filed. Dustin was busted for violating the company's ethics policy, using corporate travel to sustain a double life, and misusing company housing to hide a personal relationship he never disclosed. He wasn't fired, but he was demoted, relocated, and stripped of every shiny privilege that once put him in line for senior management. Poof. Gone. Word got around that Tracy struggled with the whole Rapid City situation. Her son Mike had trouble adjusting, kept missing school, couldn't settle in. She started live streaming craft sales to make ends meet. And sometimes, she'd vent online, men who say they love you but never take responsibility. Someone once commented, "Are you sure you picked the right guy?" She blocked them on the spot. No need to answer. Tracy picked the man who abandoned one family to chase another. That says it all. Then, one quiet autumn afternoon, a thick envelope arrived by express mail. No sender. Inside, a bank check for $85,000. And a note in stiff, mechanical handwriting, "Alimony. Don't contact me again." I laughed. The man who thought he could outsmart family, law, and loyalty now had to pay to be forgotten. But the real cost isn't money. It's trust. And Dustin lost that long ago. I used that money for the only thing I believed in. I created a scholarship, named it after Helen Thompson, the one person in his family who ever treated me like her own. It's for high school girls in North Carolina who want to study literature, education, or law. The three things that pulled me out of the shadows and back into myself. As for Tracy, well, she still posts online, still trying to sell paper flowers while venting about men. And me? I don't need to say a word. Everyone lives with their choices. Will is now a freshman communications major. He never once asked about the mess between me and his dad. But on his 17th birthday, when I handed him a signed first edition of Ash Tree Letters, he smiled and said, "Thanks, Mom, for not giving up. Life doesn't go backward, but you can start a new version, if you're brave enough to end the old one right." I'm not the Isabel who waited. I'm a mother, a writer, and the only person who gets to decide who I am. 1 year after the divorce was final, I stood on the balcony of my third-floor walk-up in Asheville's Arts District, coffee in hand, watching the fall colors pour down the street. This apartment isn't bigger than the house, but it breathes freedom. No more cold suitcases arriving on holidays, no more silent meals soaked in tension, just me and Will, where everything is honest, nothing fake, nothing forced. When the Ash Tree Letters anime premiered, reviews from both the US and Japan exceeded expectations. Translation rights were snatched up. The main character, a woman who quietly rebuilt her life, became a symbol across online forums. I never stepped into the spotlight. No press, no signings. Every interview went through a rep. C.L. Monroe stayed separate from Isabel Thompson. Because I didn't need fame, I just needed peace. I don't stress about bills anymore. That weight? Gone. But what fills me up these days isn't money. Is the simple fact that I get to write every single day, not in secret, not at midnight, when the house is asleep. I write in the open, like I belong to this life. Will is now a freshman, studying digital media at the University of North Carolina. He lives in the dorms, but he still comes home on weekends. And every time he walks through the door, he beams like sunshine, wraps me in a long hug before he even puts his backpack down. One time I joked, "Life must be good if you come in smiling like you just hit the lottery." He smirked and said, "It's because here, I don't have to explain who I am." I didn't say a word, but my heart, the one that used to feel like it was shrinking under years of disappointment, warmed in that quiet way you never expect. One rainy night, wind rattling the windows, I opened my laptop to a blank page, starting something new. This story's main character? She's 39, lives in a sleepy little town, loves floral design, loves her son, and yeah, she's been through it. She was betrayed, hurt deeply, but she didn't break. She turned pain into momentum, silence into strength, and she walked out of that darkness on her own 2 damn feet. I didn't name her right away. I let her exist, walk, speak, breathe, until she figured out who she was again, just like I once did. Maybe this time, I won't use a pen name. Maybe I will. Not because I'm hiding, but because the story should stand on its own. The world doesn't need to know the woman behind it, just the truth she tells. One day, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside, a photo. Me, Dustin, and Will, standing in front of our old house on some long-forgotten Thanksgiving. On the back, scrawled in shaky ink, "If I could do it again, I wish I'd been different." I folded the picture, slid it into the bottom drawer, and shut it. Not to forget, but to never repeat. Will and I. We live in peace now. No drama, no power plays, just the freedom to be exactly who we are and to see each other clearly, without the fog of guilt or broken promises. In the end, I realized, freedom isn't about walking away. It's about having the guts to stay with yourself when everything else has collapsed. This story, mine, isn't just about surviving a broken marriage. It's about coming back to the woman I was always meant to be. People used to look at me and see a housewife, a tag-along, but I didn't fall. I stood up. I protected my son. I protected what was mine, and I rewrote my life, one word at a time. Now, I live free, happy, strong enough not to need anyone else to measure my worth. And if you're reading this, know that you can do the same. You just have to stop waiting and start writing your own story.